Thank you, Casey. This class is really fun to teach. I've taught it several times at our conservancy district office, and I have to say that I have a bit of a disclaimer. Is just because you're attending this class and it's a cheap Scapes class doesn't mean that you're a cheap skate. This is really just an opportunity for you to learn a little bit about how to go about a yard renovation and stay within a tight budget. A little bit about myself. I'm a conservation coordinator at Weber Basin Water. I work with the landscape incentive programs up north, and I'm a certified arborist. I have 20 years of landscape maintenance, but I wanted to start off by telling a story about, let's see, it's been about 13 years ago. My wife and I bought a house, and it was a new constructed house, and we moved in, and I got to start to work on the yard, and that was almost a dream come true. I love landscaping, and but we're on a bit of a tight budget, and so a lot of what I'm going to be sharing has been what I've learned. It was about 7 years after we moved in that I really felt comfortable with my yard, and I really got to a point where I was starting to enjoy being outside without having a project to do or having something that I was needed to work on or something like that. And it was about that same time that there was a lot across the street from our current house that was being developed, and my wife said, "You know what? We could probably get a bigger house, and interest rates are low, and why don't we just go build another house?" And so we did. We literally moved across the street from our old house, and again, I got to put in the yard. So I'm working on that currently, and so not only have I done this once, I've done it twice. So got a little bit of experience. So this is what we're hoping to cover today. Landscaping on a budget. And then these are the topics that we're going to be covering. So the importance of planning, what education you can find and education that you should try to pursue. They will show you some tips for materials, labor, and tools and equipment, and then some other resources that are available just to help you be successful in your project. All right, so let's talk about planning. Planning is probably the most important thing that you can do, especially when you're working through a landscape project on a budget. It is so important. An hour of planning can save you 10 hours of doing. As long as you know what you want and what you need, then your plan can be successful. And so it's important for you to, from the get-go, develop a design for your whole site. And we have design classes. There's local scapes, which is a great way to go through a planning process, especially if you're planning from scratch. And it's a great way to put the areas of your yard together so that it's cohesive and makes sense, and it's not as scattered as it could be. So when you're making a plan, there are some things that you want to take advantage of. What does your site already offer? Are there materials on your site that you can use? Um, Going back to my first yard that I was putting in, the soil there was really, really rocky, like had a lot of gravel in it. And so my wife and I, we scraped off the first couple of inches of soil and just started screening that soil. And we produced metric tons of gravel. And luckily, we were able to dump it in some of the neighboring vacant lots, and but we were able to also use a lot of that gravel in our landscape because we knew where we wanted it. We knew where we weren't going to be planting anything or where we weren't going to be irrigating. And so we use that gravel as a material to to just add to our landscape. Okay, so that's just an example of something that I did in my yard. I just took what I had and used it to my benefit. There are things that you may be comfortable with your site. There may be things that you're not comfortable with, and if you like a view from your yard, take advantage of that view. If you want to hide a view or a view of your neighbor or whatever it is, make a plan for that. Plant a tree, do whatever you can to make that more pleasing for you and make your landscape work for you. You are the one that's going to be enjoying your landscape. You don't have to make it nice for anyone else. Okay. Um, you want to identify the form and the style you want to use. That's really important so that you can, as you're going through your project, you can look at materials, you can look at different techniques and how to accomplish what you want um, in your plan. Okay. And then another way to, or another asset to a plan is being able to have a cohesive whole, but be able to break it up into parts. So your plan can be broken down into phases. What's first priority? What's second priority? What's third priority? And especially if budget is a concern, you can do what you can afford at one point, and then wait for another opportunity and build up some budget and then move on to the next part. There are, like I said, there are a lot of good resources. There are good ways to go about planning. Localscapes is one of those. I can't say enough good things about Localscapes. It's really great. But um, with a plan, I love this quote from the Cheshire Cat, Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, then any road can take you there. So, if you don't know what you want with a plan, then you may not end up with the best landscape or a landscape that you are comfortable with. So, a plan is really important. If I were to spend any money on my landscape, a good plan would be one of the things that I would not try to save on. A good plan is worth spending a little bit more money on. So that is how important I feel like a plan is. Okay, so there are a couple of different types of plans. You have a general plan and you have a very specific plan. And there are pros and cons to both of those things. Sometimes a specific plan will call out specific materials. I like this flower or this tree or this type of brick paver, or I love this color of mulch. Whatever it is, that specific plan is it can work in a budget landscape. However, most of the time it's not going to be the best for a landscape that is on a budget. Um, you can have specific ideas and things that you want to try to accomplish, but you may need to be flexible on the materials. So that's where a general plan comes in, is using a little bit more generalities to define how you're going to accomplish the work. So instead of saying I want this type of flower, saying, oh, I really like a mix of flowers, orange and purple. I don't know exactly what flowers I want to call out specifically, but I do like those two colors together. I'm just going to go look for those two colors and try to put them together. Light wood chip mulch or a large shade tree or a gravel path. Just make it a little bit more general because the materials that may be available and that you can afford may be a little different than um, what you may want specifically. Okay. So, I talked about this a little bit, executing a plan in phases. It's really important, especially on a budget, to execute a plan like this in phases. This graphic on the page shows this is a park that was being built. I don't remember where it was, but anyway, the design shows that in the first 5 years, we're going to start in the central core of this area and get that done and completed. And then over the next in the 5 to 10 years, we're going to expand on that and build out from those areas. And then after 10 to 15 years, we'll be able to have that whole park area completed and going. So you start with a small area that you can enjoy, and then you just build on those things. So setting up a priority list and phasing your project just helps you to be able to enjoy your project. And your plan may evolve the with the phases. You may find that a material that you used in phase one is really pretty awful to work with, and you may move on to a different type of material for phase two, just depending. So, um, there's some tips for working in phases. The first thing that I would say is make sure you have your irrigation planned out for your whole site, for your whole project. That way you can run your irrigation, your main lines to your valves and have your valves in place so that when you are going to be working in an area and need to run water to those areas, you can do that, work in that area, and then move on to the next area, run water from your valve to that area. Just a great way to phase out your plan and your project is separate it by irrigation zones, even. Do one irrigation zone at a time. Another thing that you could do, or I guess another priority that I would say is plant your trees where your trees are going to be, because trees are an investment in your landscape. There's an old proverb that says, best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is now. If you can get that tree in the ground, get it established, then it's going to help your landscape as you are installing it feel mature and feel a lot more cozy. Okay. Another thing that I would do is if you are doing your project by yourself, it's a DIY, and you don't have a lot of experience doing that, think about installing or working in small areas first. Park strips are a great example. Learn your lessons in a small area and then move on to larger areas. Also, in my case with my yards, I did all of the outward facing things first. So my front yard, my park strips, I did all of that first, and then I was able to work in my back and side yards and get those to where they needed to be. So start in those small areas, start in those areas that are outward facing, and learn some lessons. Um, it's okay to fail. That's how we learn. So um, take advantage of those learning opportunities. But it's nicer and more convenient to learn from those mistakes in smaller areas than in larger areas. You can be a lot less expensive that way. All right, education. Education is so very important, especially when you're doing a DIY project and a project on a budget. Knowing how to do things and knowing best materials to use all comes from education. So, where can you go to learn about things. There's some really great resources. There are some good resources, and there are some okay resources. And we're going to talk about all of those. The best resources that are going to be able to talk to you um, about materials, about plants. Those are the peer-reviewed, scientific, reputable sources. So places like Utah State University, the Extension Service, the water districts do a really great job of doing research and knowing what is working and what's not working. The Department of Natural Resources and the Division of Water Resources, they we all have people on our staffs that are horticulturalists that do understand what works and what doesn't work. We have experience installing our yards ourselves, and we can give you good advice. Um, the state extension, they're funded to do research, and uh, it's a great resource. You can go on and find videos and fact sheets and just a great resource. So those are what I would consider trusted, reliable resources. Other resources that are okay, but I would be a little wary of things like social media, YouTube, friends and neighbors. Just be cautious with those things. You may be able to find a lot of good information on YouTube, but it may not be applicable to our area. I've found several videos on there that talk about putting eggshells down in the roots of my tomatoes. And the reason for that is because tomatoes need calcium, and eggshells are basically calcium. But here in Utah, our soils are based in calcium. So we're not lacking in calcium in our soils. And that's one of the reasons why our soils are so alkaline is because of the calcium in the soil. So that's a great tip, just not for Utah. Okay. Social media is another, just be careful with who you're getting your information from. If you can get it from a reputable source, then that is much better than getting it from someone that you just met or is posting a video online. There's the information might be good, just not for Utah. Okay. Friends and neighbors, they can be good resources, but they could also um, be giving you outdated information or information that isn't best practice. Um, Contractors also, you would hope that you could trust a contractor, but you may not. They may not be able to give you the best information. Okay, so there are places online that you can get those information. Um, uh, I know that Central Utah offers classes like this one that help you understand um, the best ways um, to go about a project or maintain a garden or a yard. So go to those trusted sources. All right, let's talk a little bit about materials. There are some great ways to save on materials, and we're going to talk through. I have a list of things here that uh, things that you can do to um, save on materials. Okay. One of my favorite ones is Chip Drop. Chip Drop is a program where um, arborists who and tree care professionals they can uh, log on to this platform and say we have trees and branches that we have shredded up and we want to get rid of them. And then people who want that material can then say, ooh, send it to my house. And the arborists and the tree care professionals, they will drive it over, dump it in the driveway, and be off. And then you, as a homeowner or a person who wants that mulch material, can then spread it out and use it. It's free for both the arborist and the people who want that material. I love it. I think it's a great program. There's no real guarantee as to timing, so it's just kind of whenever you can just say, I'm wanting some, I need about this much, and they will bring it over. You can also specify if you want certain types of woods, and you can specify if you don't want certain types of wood. So, just a great program, great resource for some free material. And you're helping your arborist out, you're helping yourself save some money. Another thing about that is in the shredded tree branch and the shredded wood chips, those are actually really beneficial for the soil. They're a lot more nutritious than like a bark mulch. They break down a little faster, and they just contribute a lot more nutrients to the soil. So, if that's something that you're interested in, or if that's important to you, then Chip Drop is a great resource. You can repurpose existing materials. I have gone to the Restore several times to look for different things, like oddball things that I could possibly use in my yard as maybe like an ornament or something like that. Just a great resource there. If you have a concrete path that you're taking out of your yard, maybe breaking it up into uh, pieces that are manageable, you can reuse those concrete blocks as stepping stones, or use it as a stacked retaining wall type thing. That's I've seen that done before, and it's actually looked fairly decent if it's done well. You can stain existing concrete instead of replacing the concrete. They have concrete stains where you can put it on and make it look like a paver patio or something like that. So just thinking about what you already have and how you can maybe transform it instead of replace it can be beneficial. Okay, so this is a soapbox of mine, and I will probably, I don't know, this is a fight that I will make every single day. Weed fabrics and weed barriers, landscape fabrics, they are not worth buying. Don't even spend any money on landscape fabrics, because after about 3 years, they lose their efficacy. They just are not doing what you bought them to do. And they're actually going to be creating more problems than they're solving. So just don't spend any money on landscape fabrics. It's better to put down a layer of mulch that's 3 to 4 inches thick, and it will do the same job much better. Um, Another thing you can do, and I've done this in the past, is use wood pallets. You can use wood pallets for um, some fencing. You can use it for footpaths. Your boxes, if you're doing raised garden bed, you can use pallets for that. Um, a lot of times you can find pallets for pretty inexpensive, if not for free, and um, great resource there. Things you can also do is look at other alternate fencing options. I have a picture here of it's an apple tree that's grown in an espalier. Um, and I did this in my first house. Uh, Planted an apple between my yard and my neighbor's yard and our side yard, and it still looks great. It's a great fun fence, and you get apples off of it, and it's just it's fun to maintain and fun to take care of, and a great conversation starter with people walking their dogs. Um, Another thing you can do to save on materials is try to buy them in bulk instead of buying them bagged. You're paying for the shipping, you're paying for the packaging when you buy things in bags. Bags are a little easier to work with. But your bulk mulches, your bulk gravels, your bulk soils, they're going to be a lot less expensive. So if you can, buy them in bulk, have them delivered, or go pick them up yourself if you have that capability. Same with gravel. We have a gravel pit here in town, and I've gone several times to just go get a load of gravel and put it in my yard or wherever I'm needing to have some gravel. So just a great way to save a little bit on your landscape. Okay, this is important. Just because you have some material that's available doesn't mean you should always use it. I have this picture here. It shows some jeans that were used as planters, and I don't know how those jeans are as clean as they are, but um, anyway, just because it's available doesn't mean it should be used. May not look the best. All right. For plant material, there's some great ways to save on plants. One of the best ways to do that is to propagate your plants yourself. Save seeds and plant from seeds. Grow your plants from seeds. You can buy seeds for much less expensive or a lower cost than you can from buying, larger plants. If you know how to propagate, take cuttings and root out some cuttings, that's a great way to stretch your dollar. I have a couple of pictures here of some different ways to propagate plants. So if you have a woody shrub, something like a dogwood shrub, you can take a branch off of that dogwood, bend it down into the soil and stake it down, cover it. Uh, at that point that's covered, it will start to develop roots. And then once there's some roots developed, you can cut it off at the parent plant and you have a new plant. That's how strawberries get that's how they spread. And so, same idea. And you can have multiple plants and propagate them and do that basically for free. All you're out is some time. Okay. There's another way to do basically the same thing. You get a bag of soil, make a wound in a branch of a tree. You tie some wet soil around that, cover it with a plastic bag, and it'll start to develop some roots. That's called air layering. And then once that has some roots, you cut it off and plant it. So just a couple of great ways to propagate some plants. There are programs in the state. I just actually saw an advertisement for the pollinator program in the state today. So the Utah, uh, I think is the Department of Agriculture, they have the pollinator program. They will, what they're trying to do is promote a landscape that is beneficial to insects and other pollinators. And they will send you, after you apply, they will send you free plants. So all you have to do is commit to use them and have the room to use them. There are seed swaps you can go to, plant swaps. There's farmers markets, Facebook Marketplace. A lot of times you'll have people who are selling plants online. Um, One way to save money at the nursery is to purchase small plants. The I listened to a presentation once that was talking about the differences between a 1 inch caliper tree, a 3 inch caliper tree, and a larger caliper tree. And they said that the younger, smaller tree caught up to those other sizes within 5 years. So a younger tree can get established better. They stay healthier. The root systems develop more healthily, and then they can catch up to those other larger trees faster. Instead of buying plants in a gallon pot or a 5 gallon pot, look for those 4 inch pots. It's the same plant. It's going to grow up to be the same size as those other plants. It may take just a little bit longer, but your plant will actually end up being healthier. In the fall, look for plants on the clearance racks at nurseries. Compare prices at nurseries. I have one story. My wife and I, as we were looking for plants for our current house, we went to a nursery and I had an idea of how much plants should cost, and we went to a nursery and all of the plants I felt were so expensive. And I told that to my wife. I said, these plants are ridiculously expensive. And she's like, oh, really? That's interesting. I said, let's go check out another nursery. So we did. We went to a different nursery and sure enough, the same plants that we were looking at were half the cost. And so it pays to compare prices at nurseries. And then, of course, always look for a deal. Look for sales, and um, take use that to your advantage. All right. Now that you have materials, it's time to install those materials, and you may need some help. So, here are some tips on how to save time and money, especially when it comes to labor. Um, Doing it yourself can save you a lot of money, but it's going to cost you a lot of time. And some people are okay with that, and some people are not okay with that. And there are some types of things that you may not be comfortable doing. So it's important for you to know what your limits are. If you're not comfortable running a trencher for your landscape, maybe you hire a contractor to install your irrigation system, and that's it. That's all you're hiring them to do. But sometimes it's going to save you time and it's going to save you money to hire somebody to do a specific job and have it done right the first time instead of making a mistake and having to correct that mistake. So find another way to save is finding neighbors and friends that are working on projects at the same time. Um, the really nice thing about moving into a new neighborhood that's newly constructed, newly developed, is that most everybody's in the same boat. And so you can form kind of a co-op of neighbors and um, rent a piece of equipment at the same time and use it for 4 different houses, share the cost of that equipment, and be better off. One person may be more comfortable using that piece of equipment, and they can come do some of the work in your yard and take care of what you need to be, what you need to have done, um, all at the same time. Uh, Everyone knows a guy also. So use that network of, hey, I know somebody who just went through this and this is what they did, or this is how they took care of it, or this I know this guy who has this piece of equipment. Let me ask him if I can borrow it. Something like that. Use the I know a guy network. And then if you're renovating a lawn space, instead of renting a sod remover or sod cutter and removing it, just spray it, kill it, or solarize it, however you want to kill the lawn. Use it to help build some biological organic material in your soil, and then just cover it instead. Till it up if you need to, but it that will just help to revitalize your soil and make it a lot more healthier. There are organization groups that do volunteer for helping people in different areas. This one's a little bit of a stretch. You might have to be willing to wait a while for this, but church groups are always looking for service opportunities. And then there's the Just Serve organization, their website, where people who are looking to do some service. It's almost like chip drop. We have people who are willing to help and people who need help, and this is just a platform that gets those people together. So, if you want to put your project out on Just Serve, say I'm going to do this project on this day at this time, you might get people who are interested in coming and um, helping you out. All right, tools and equipment. Tools and equipment are they can be pretty expensive, but they can also save you a lot of time. But there are some ways that you can save money on tools and equipment. Let's talk about some of those things. Um, like I said before, if you're doing projects around the same time as other people and they're similar projects, co-op those rentals. If you can share that rental and share that cost. It may take a little bit longer between both of you, but um, most tools and most equipment rental places, they will charge you a minimum rate. So if you are only using it for an hour, it's going to cost you the same as if you use it for half a day. And so it's sometimes it's better to uh, reach out to friends and neighbors and see if there's anyone else doing something similar and renting it and sharing that cost. Um, I love this quote. The only thing better than owning a boat is having a friend that owns a boat. And that is how I love that with equipment also. The the network of friends that you have can save you a lot of money. Um, there have been times that I've needed a tool or a piece of equipment like a rototiller or something like that, and been able to borrow it. And that means that I don't have to maintain it, I don't have to store it, but I can use it. My only piece of advice, though, is if you do borrow any tools or equipment from friends or neighbors, make sure that you are returning it in better condition than you received it. One story, I borrowed a rototiller from a neighbor of mine, and they were a little reluctant to lend me their rototiller. And afterwards, I used it, and when I got it, it had weeds that were wrapped around the rotor, the blades, and the tines, and I took the time after I was done to clean it all out and washed it all down and took it back to them and my neighbor told his wife, he said, you know, he can borrow tools and equipment from me anytime, just because I had cleaned it off and brought it back better than I had received it. So it builds some trust. All right, there are some resources um, for saving some money when you're working in a landscape. This Landscape Lawn Exchange is our landscape incentive program up in Weber and Davis County. I know Central Utah has their landscape incentive programs, and they offer money for you to renovate your yards. If you have lawn and want to transform your lawn into a water efficient landscape, there's money for that. And you can contact Central Utah. You can contact other organizations that may be offering money for the landscape. Um, there are rebates also throughout the state for irrigation controllers and other water saving devices. If you go to utahwatersavers.com, and if you've purchased a smart irrigation controller, you can receive money for that. And again, like I said before, with plants, there is that pollinator habitat program, and that is the URL link for the pollinator program. So there are resources available. It may take a little bit of resource or research to find those resources, but also um, they're available and take advantage of them. Okay, that is all that I have for my presentation. Don't worry about filling out that survey because it's something for Weber Basin and not for Central Utah. But um, if we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions now.
I'll just mention that I threw on there that Utah Water Savers is where you go for our landscape incentive program. That's in Utah
Yeah.
County and um, chunks of Salt Lake County and Wasatch County and those areas. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And also the pollinator program, we actually had the director of that program speak to us last week. So we have
Oh,
a
awesome.
recorded class on that. If you missed it, you can go see that on our website as well as the slides from that. Right now, that program is open till I can't remember the date, but sometime in April, like April 11th or something like that.
Yeah.
So now's the time to apply, and you're not guaranteed to get those plants, but if you are selected, they'll let you know, and then you pick those up in September.
Yeah. Um, oh, that's a great question. Let me open this so I can see it a little better. Okay, so question is, I've seen where people lay down cardboard, get it wet, and cover it with mulch to kill lawn. Does that work here in Utah? I have seen that work here in Utah. It works better in an area that isn't as dry because the cardboard will break down better in a wetter area. So if you're okay with your mulch kind of slipping around on the cardboard, then for a while it it's okay. You can do it. It will kill the lawn, but it does work better in areas that are a little wetter than we are. That cardboard breaks down a lot faster, a lot better. Um, but I have seen it work, yes. So. Um, yeah, that's a great way and an inexpensive way to do some weed control, and it does well. It I would say that you'd probably have some cardboard that would probably last from year to year. It may be able to break down at the end of the I guess second year after you install it. So it really just kind of depends on how wet the year is. Okay, the question is, when I moved into a new construction home, did I put a lot of new topsoil in, or did I work with more of my existing soil? That's a great question. I was fortunate to live in an area that had some really rich and really good soil. And so I tried to use that as much as I could in my landscape. That's why I scraped off what I did and screened it, sifted through it, and then I went back and spread it all back out in my yard. If that's a possibility for you, great. A lot of newly constructed homes, the contractors will scrape off the soil, take it off site, and sell it. And you're left with having to bring in soil. And a lot of times, what you're bringing in isn't as high quality as to what was there previously. Another thing that happens when you bring in new topsoil is it creates a layer, and water has to saturate one layer before it will penetrate into another layer of soil. And so the water movement between layers of soil can be a little tricky. And you may have some good drainage in a lower layer of your soil, but what you bring in, it could be a little heavier clay and ends up having a lot more runoff instead of water penetration. So just be careful with the soil. If you do need to bring in topsoil, um, maybe get a soil test done before you bring it in. That way, you know what you're working with. You'll maybe know what you can do to amend that to make it a little bit healthier. Adding compost to a soil is always a good idea. That's uh, just a piece of advice that I would give you if you're doing a new construction. Um, Okay, so just one comment with the cardboard is you just have to use a lot of mulch. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. If you're using 4 inches of mulch, then on top of a cardboard, it's going to retain a lot of that moisture and break down that cardboard faster. Okay. Another question, if you want to change a lawn area to be a sitting area with a gravel path, can you still do it on top of the lawn, or should you dig it out first? Lawn's pretty resilient, and it can find a way to grow up through different things. I've seen lawn grow up through weed barrier or grow down through weed barrier. So I would recommend either digging it out or killing it and then maybe digging it out a little bit, just so that your gravel is going to be at the same level as the rest of the surrounding areas. So it doesn't create a tripping hazard or something like that. So just make sure that that gravel is at the same level as the surrounding areas. That's what I would recommend.